What's up, guys? AP Lit, good to see you. I'm excited to make a little video. I did this last week for World Lit, and it's kind of fun for me to do some creative stuff with some videos. It's fun for me. Hopefully, it helps build some sort of connection or recover a little bit of the connection that we're used to having. I miss you guys. I obviously hope you're doing really well, staying healthy, staying disciplined and active. And yeah, before I get into specifics, I do just want to say that I hope you watch this whole video. I obviously think that it's important. I definitely put some time into making it, and I'm going to try to use some newly developing YouTube skills to to try to make it interesting. And yeah, I hope that you guys will just respect the time that went into it and actually watch it. I don't want to try to do anything or any crazy programs that keep track of the time you guys watch. So yeah, just I encourage you to watch the whole thing. Before we get into any specifics, I just wanted to talk about a few just general things. The first, being an AP class, obviously we're all it's kind of crazy that this new option, this new way they're going to do things this year has come up. It's all we know is that it's going to be a 45-minute free response, which means kind of like an essay. Supposedly, next week on April 3rd, we're supposed to find out. I guess it's going to be this week. We're supposed to find out some more details, so I'm going to update you as soon as I can. But honestly, like AP Lit, because the skills that we build in this class are so broad, and they're such organic skills, like I've been saying all year, I think what we do, no matter what, will be useful. This week is all going to be focused on poetry, and we'll see if they say whether it's going to be like a poetry or prose thing on the AP exam. But regardless, I still think that what we're going to be doing will be worthwhile regardless. So I'll keep you posted. Be paying attention to my updates for stuff about the AP exam. Also, this week, supposedly we are entering this new phase of online learning, and they kind of the biggest new thing they're encouraging us to do is to do some kind of like more live sessions of class. Personally, and from my perspective, like I feel like as far as like school AP Lit stuff goes, I feel pretty comfortable continuing to do just like Google Classroom discussions. I like the Flipgrid discussions and probably will continue to use those. Please give me like feedback on anything if you can think of ways that I can do it better. I think I will do a kind of like an optional live, either like with Zoom or Google Meet, but probably what that is just going to be is just to say hey and check in, and maybe if you have any questions about anything. But honestly, like if I get the chance to interact with you guys live, like I'm just going to be interested in how you're doing personally. I anticipate that it'll feel kind of silly and forced for me to try to get you guys to discuss like poetry or something like that. So yeah, I will plan on doing something live, but it'll be optional. It'll just be informal. So if you want a chance to say hey to me, please check into that. And yeah, I hope you do. I think it would be really great to see you and just touch base really briefly. So let's get down to business. To remind you, our last AP unit that we are in is our Literature and Society unit. I've divided it into two halves. As you know, we started with dystopia, with the unideal society, and now we are on to my man, Wendell Berry, who, as I've said, is my favorite writer. I love him. I love ending with him. One, because he writes in all these genres and just lends itself really well to review, I think, because we get to look at like all these different genres. But also just I think his ideals, his vision for what a healed society looks like is really inspiring, and I love sending my students out like into the world with this kind of vision and thinking about some of these ideals. Like I just think they're really worthwhile, really wise, and they've shaped so much of how I view the world and what I think a more ideal world might look like. A big word that I use to talk about Wendell Berry and his kind of utopian vision is the word holistic, which is something similar too that I talk about in my World Lit class around this time. And I would say that Wendell Berry presents a very holistic, or you could also use the word sustainable vision for making the world a better place. To explore this a little bit more, actually, I would like to look at the essay that you guys are going to be writing. I really consider this to be the last major writing assignment of AP Lit, and I am assigning it this week. So actually, if you want to, just pause this video real quick and pull up the essay sheet. I'm kind of going to go over it right now. So this is Wendell Berry's Healed World, which is another big word that he uses, the word healing. And on this assignment sheet, I give a quote, and then I say that Wendell Berry does not fall into the trap of buying into quick fixes for society's ills. While in his writing and activism, he certainly addresses the concerns of politics, economics, environmentalism, and social institutions. Berry also believes that the most foundational parts of our lives in the modern world are damaged. Our working and eating, our families and communities, our relationship with the natural world, the spiritual and existential state of our souls, all are rife with broken connections that need healing. So I think this captures well what I mean by the word holistic. He presents this very full picture of like the brokenness of the world, and also I think solutions and ways for this broken and damaged world to find healing. And you can see like in all of his writings, if you really get a full picture of it, like you see all these levels. He talks about politics, economics, the environment. Obviously, he's like very famous for being like an environmentalist. So he talks a lot about that and nature. But also he talks about more like lower level concerns, or like more individualistic concerns, family, community, and also just about our individual well-being. Something I will be talking about a lot is the sustainability compass, right? So nature, economy, society, and well-being. And we see this full, sustainable, holistic picture in Berry's work. So the essay, obviously that writing about all those things would be pretty difficult for you to write about. In the essay, I'm asking you, the prompt that I give you is, what do you think are the most important characteristics of his vision for a healed world? And then also I'm asking you to pick and choose kind of different works to quote and to draw upon in your essay. So you are required to use the short novella that we're going to use, which I think we'll probably dig into next week. But throughout the next few weeks, we're going to be looking at some of his poetry. We're going to be looking at some essays, and it's going to be up to you to kind of pick and choose and really kind of synthesize. You can kind of consider this essay to be like a synthesis essay, drawing upon multiple sources to bring them together into one thesis. So I think it's a really cool way for the ideas and just for like the writing skills, a really cool way to end the year with. So that's kind of like the big assignment, that the last final assignment for AP Lit, other than obviously the AP exam. So shifting gears for the last few minutes here. This week we are looking at poetry. He's probably actually most famous for his poetry. He's found in a lot of like American poetry anthologies. And what I'd like to do, because I'm asking you to do some poetry analysis this week, when we did poetry during the second quarter, I did a lot of modeling. I think that kind of modeling, breaking down a poem, I think is really important. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to model a kind of analyzing a poem. And I think, too, the poem that I'm going to choose, it's one of my favorites, probably top 2, top 3 Wendell Berry poems. I think it really captures what I'm talking about in his holistic, sustainable vision for utopia, or for a healed world. And the poem that I'm going to look at is called A Timbered Choir. It's attached to the Google Classroom note, so go ahead and pull that up. And actually, I'm going to show you something that I always show my classes when I introduce Wendell Berry, which is a trailer to a documentary about him. And basically, the whole entire documentary trailer is him reading excerpts from this poem. So pull that poem up, and I'm going to put in this trailer to this video right here. And so soak it in, listen to him in his wonderful Southern accent, read this poem, and after that, we're going to break it down in detail.
Even while I dreamed, I prayed that what I saw was only fear and no foretelling. For I saw the last known landscape destroyed for the sake of the objective, the soil bulldozed, the rock blasted. Those who had wanted to go home would never get there now. I saw the forest reduced to stumps and gullies. I saw the poisoned river, the mountain cast into the valley. I came to the city that nobody recognized because it looked like every other city. Men and women and children now pursued the objective as if nobody ever had pursued it before. The once enslaved, the once oppressed were now free to sell themselves to the highest bidder and to enter the best-paying prisons in pursuit of the objective, which was the destruction of all enemies, which was the destruction of all obstacles, which was to clear the way to victory, which was to clear the way to self-creation, from which nobody who ever wanted to go home would ever get there now. For every remembered place had been displaced, every love unloved, every vow unsworn, to make way for the passage of the crowd, of the individuated, the autonomous, the self-actuated, the homeless, with their many eyes opened only toward the objective, which they did not yet perceive in the far distance, having never known where they were going, having never known where they came from.
All right, so good, right? So good. So let's break it down. In A Timbered Choir, the first line, it's clear that this what he's describing, what this poem is about, the point of view, it's kind of like a dream. It's kind of a vision. You could even say that it's like a dystopian dream, because he says that he hopes that it's only his fears and no foretelling. So he hopes that this doesn't come true, but he is trying to be real about his fears. And in this dream, we see a few major characteristics of the world. We see destruction, we see oppression, captivity, we see anonymity, namelessness, homelessness, a lack of history, a lack of remembrance. And we also see, going back to your essays, we see this damaged, destroyed world on all these different levels. We see, obviously, nature being destroyed, but we also see destruction marking society, communities, families, relationships, and even individuals. And apparently, hopefully you picked up on this as you were listening, the reason for all this is people and their pursuit of the objective. So we're going to get back to that in a second. To highlight just a few of my favorite lines, I think other than this motif of the objective, I think another important device you could say is paradox, or you could say irony. So for example, one of my favorite few lines is, "The once enslaved, the once oppressed, were now free to sell themselves to the highest bidder and to enter the best paying prisons." So it's obviously such an ironic and scathing way to describe what people pursue, and even the jobs of people, that people work so hard to gain money and positions that they think that are going to free them, right? But they just end up getting re-enslaved to their jobs, to their own greed and selfishness. Such a good use of irony and paradox. I also love the line down a little further, "To make way for the passage of the crowd, of the individuated, the autonomous, the self-actuated, the homeless." So another great instance of irony, right? We usually think of being autonomous, self-actuated. We tend to view those ideas very positively, right? We're fulfilled, we are self-actuated. But then he undercuts it, right, with the word homeless. And I think what he's saying is that so often our quests for identity and fulfillment, they really lack a true foundation. They lack substance. They lack connectedness to a place and to a community. And maybe you could say they kind of end up turning into a selfish and a destructive pursuit. So if we were to take a step back and maybe think about a thesis statement, right? To me, the most important part of this poem is, what is the objective? What does that mean? It's vague, right? It's ambiguous. It's mysterious. And I think the question, what is the objective, is the whole point of the poem. It's supposed to be vague. It's supposed to be ambiguous. What he's saying is that people are chasing after something. People are pursuing something that's not real, that's not really there, that doesn't really have any substance. At the end of the poem, it says, "Their many eyes were open towards the objective, which they did not yet perceive in the distance." And at different points in the poem, maybe we could think of some synonyms, some definitions for the objective. Maybe the word progress, money, fulfillment, satisfaction. And two, notice that these words, they can work on a large scale, for society, or on an individual scale. But ultimately, he's saying that so many goals that we have, or our society has, are illusory. They're not real. They don't have substance. And ultimately, they are destructive. Destructive of the world, of our societies, our communities, our families, and our souls even. So I think it's so deep. So for a good AP Lit thesis statement, because you guys are doing this week, you're doing a few poem analyses. Here's mine. In his poem, A Timbered Choir, Wendell Berry employs devices such as imagery, paradox, and an ambiguous motif to critique the ambitions that people in the modern era often pursue. Not only does he point out the frivolity of these desires, i.e. money, power, progress, but he also points out that our fervent dedication to these ends often leads to destruction of the natural world, of healthy communities and families, and ultimately of our own well-being. And maybe if I were approaching this in an essay, I might take these three levels, nature, society, and well-being, and kind of do 3 paragraphs for those 3 kind of topics. Hashtag sustainability compass, hashtag Mr. Mike, hashtag recorded video capstone. So hopefully that's a nice little model for you guys to get back into the mindset of thinking deep about poetry. I hope that this video was a good preview of this unit, and hopefully got you a little bit excited about Wendell Berry, and let you guys in on a little bit of why I love this man so much, and why I think he is just full of wisdom. And yeah, love you guys again. Hope this is helpful. Keep me updated. Keep bringing feedback my way. And I hope to see you guys in our live stream video. Thanks.